They look like tennis balls. I wasn't focusing. I was trying to get the cool. Why is it? Why? Poetry tweeting. We're not offended by the English. Who are like, yeah, that's not an issue. They're offended by the. This will be very thin bass. তোরটা তো হবে না হবে ওটুকু তো হবে সব হবে ওকে লেট ইট কুক একটু ক্লোজে যা না মাখনের বাটিটা কেন হ্যাঁ তো হাতগুলো কি করে কতটা না zoom out menu I get nervous I'm not checking myself out, it's just that the hair is a choice and I know that, but I made that choice and I'm sticking with it. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Avipsha. This is the video about my favorite queer books that I have read in my entire life. I was hoping to get this out during first 2 weeks of Pride month, but I've been going through shit and I didn't film, which is why we will have it in the middle of the month, because it shouldn't be a specific month when you should read queer books. You should always read queer books. That's why we have delayed it. That is why.
I was making a list, I was making a mental list, and I was thinking so hard about all the books that I could miss, all the books that I probably would not include, and that was giving me a lot of anxiety. But then I realized that this list should not be dependent on just objectively good writing or objectively good plots, but also on what I liked, what I remembered, what I retained as a queer person myself. If I liked it, it should count for something because it is for me.
This is the first book on the list. No surprise, obviously, if you know me personally or if you've ever been to any of my social media, you will know that I recommend this book to everyone and their mothers. I recommend this book on a happy Saturday, a rainy Sunday, regular Thursday. It doesn't matter to me. It can be read anytime, anywhere, and I will recommend it. I read this for the first time in college and it changed my life. It literally did. I think it is probably because I needed something like this back then at that very stage of my life. But I will be forever thankful to the professor who recommended this and the class, which also helped me embrace myself as a person. So, The Hours by Michael Cunningham is about 3 women and their intersecting lives. The first person is called Clarissa, coincidentally, and her friends, or rather one friend, calls her Mrs. Dalloway, like the character Mrs. Dalloway. Virginia Woolf is a common thread through the lives of these 3 women. Yes, that makes sense. Clarissa is throwing a party for a friend of hers who's just received an award, a very prestigious award, and she wants to make it the best day of his life. Will she succeed? We'll find out. Just like her namesake, she also goes through her day. She lives with her partner. She meets her daughter who has brought a friend, and there's a lot of dialogue and exchange about different generations of being queer and how they approach life and how it is different from their previous generations as well. The second storyline is about this person called Laura Brown, and she is a mother, a wife. She's married a war veteran who proposed to her immediately after the war, so she couldn't really refuse, but she doesn't want to be a wife and a mother. She
just wants to read in her bed. She wants to wake up, read her book in her bed preferably, and just vibe, sail through life. She just wants to live, exist. She doesn't want these responsibilities. She doesn't want the society telling her that she should be happy and grateful that she has a husband who's so good. no matter how good he is. It's just not nice.
So she makes a decision. She decides to do something incredible, something shocking. She takes her car out and she does it. Kind of. You'll figure it out. You'll find out. It's. Yes. The third story is Virginia herself. It's a day in her life. She's writing, she's discussing things with her husband. Her sister comes to visit, and stuff goes down. She is trying to talk to her husband about the problems that she's facing, which is obviously almost impossible for anyone with mental health issues. People don't really understand, especially if you're supposed to be objectively okay and well off, happy, etc. But she loves her husband and she's trying to talk to him about it. It is heartbreaking but also relatable because
Depression
creeps upon you and you don't really get the time, space, or vocabulary to actually explain it to the people that you love. That is exactly how I have been feeling this week. Anyway, there are these reels on Instagram which say stuff like,
as soon as I finished this book, I turned back to page 1.
never happened to me. I do not reread books. I get bored. It may be a masterpiece. It may be the best piece of literature in the world. I don't care. If I've read it once, I will be bored. This one, however, I read it. I cried. I bawled my eyes out. I turned back to page 1. I cannot explain it. It just is. Book number 2 is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. I will start by stating the fact that this is a happy ending. Trust me, you'll need to know that because it gets really depressing. It gets so sad that I wanted to put it down after a while. I did not want to continue reading it because I felt so bad. But it is a good ending. It's a happy, hopeful ending. It's about a woman called Celie who is brought up in a slave owner's house. Her father sexually abuses her and she tries to survive. She is a fighter. She tries to fight and survive. Her men have been absolutely shit to her. This book is about a lot of things actually. It's about racism, obviously. It's about queerness. It's about relationships between women supporting each other through turbulent times. It is also, and that's what attracts me to it, is about the intersectional position of an African American woman. And it's very interesting the way she navigates her life with her husband, where there are problems, but there are also situations where she understands that her husband is going through a lot as well. And feminism in marginal groups, in marginal spaces, is very difficult to articulate because of these reasons, because racial violence exists alongside gender violence, and this book does a great job in trying to deal with that question. It's also written very beautifully. It's written in dialect, so it might be a little difficult to get into it, but once you do, you will not have a problem. Some of the quotes about religion, about love, about finding God, and through the metaphor of God finding one's identity, because Celie talks to God throughout the novel in letters, and I think it's just so well done. I will just read a quote quickly from my laptop, which is there. I think us here to wonder, myself, to wonder, to ask, and that in wondering about the big things and asking about the big things, you learn about the little things, almost by accident, and you never know nothing more about the big things than you start out with. The more I wonder, the more I love. The third book, and I don't have physical copies for this, which is why I decided to do some much needed skincare. So I have my face mask thing, which I will be putting here. It does something with the oil stuff, I don't know. And then I'll follow it up with my rose water, and then finally Nivea. On to the book. This is called Passing Strange. It's a novella by Ellen Klages. I think that's how you pronounce the name. And it is about lesbian witches. Lesbian witches feature in the novel. I forget who suggested this to me, but it was YouTube. I found this on YouTube and I read it in one sitting because it was so engrossing. It's about this artist, I forget her name, she meets a singer, a performer, and falls in love with her. It's a very simple story of girl meets girl, falls in love with girl, faces a huge challenge, which is her husband. She has a husband. My eyes are watering because this burns, but she has a husband who is a sailor. So he comes back sometimes to check up on her, to irritate, bother her, you know, the usual. And she falls in love with this girl while he is away, and they have some great times together. But then there are troubles in paradise, obviously, and then they seek help from their friends, which is an art circle, sort of. There are witches in it, and also chemists and scientists and mathematicians. It's talented, powerful women supporting each other throughout history. It's also set in 1940s San Francisco, which makes it even better, in my opinion, because I love historical fiction, and sapphic women in history, best thing. So, that is that. What I like about this book is the found family trope, which is one of my favorite tropes of all time, and the way they just coexist. Like, there are so many different opinions, there are so many different worldviews, political opinions going for these people, and yet they're friends, and because they respect each other's personhood, because they respect each other's lives, and just the vibes are also amazing. And there's a lot of art as well, obviously, because one of the main characters is an artist, and she draws, I'm forgetting the exact term for it, but these are pictures for books which are like racy, flashy fiction. So in a way, she's also reclaiming her position. She draws women who are desired by men, who are attractive to the male gaze, from the perspective of the female gaze, which also interests me. The politics of that, as the ending is a bit whimsical, because as I mentioned, practitioners of magic exist in this world. The problem was solved in a way which is probably not practical. You'll understand when you read it. I'm not going to spoil it, but that could be a deal breaker for some people, but I didn't hate it, you know. These people, they deserve a happy ending, and they got it. Through what means
is not important.
It's a short novella. It's really short. It's like 100 pages. Less than 100 pages probably. I read it on a PDF, so I don't know what the book is like. But on PDF, it was like 120 pages, which is very less. It was amazing. It left me with so many questions, but it also didn't leave me wanting for a good setting and a good vibe overall. So, you know, if you want vibes plus philosophy plus politics plus lesbian witches, you have the book for you. That's it. And while this is drying, I will talk about the next book, In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I read this last year, I think, or the year before, during October, as a part of my October TBR, because this is nothing less than horror. It is a horror book. It is classified as a horror book. It deals with an abusive relationship in the author's life with her girlfriend, and it uses tropes from horror films, like the dream house as the haunted house, the dream house as a pathetic fallacy, as diagnosis, and things like that. And what is unique about this book is that it's a mixture of breaking the third wall and also incorporating a choose your own adventure style of writing. So the author addresses the reader directly, almost as if you are the one who's inflicting the abuse on her and she's on the receiving end of it. It is addressed to you, which can be quite traumatic at times. But I actually like the way in which she did the choose your own adventure style, where she will point out that if you, for example, I said this, your reaction would be, and then you go to a certain page and she writes your reaction. What it actually reiterates is that living with an abusive person can make your mind go in circles in a way that even when you think that you are saying something which is different, which will not trigger them, which will not lead to violent reactions, it will, because it's a pattern. There is a quote that I would like to read. Yes, I know another quote. I'm in a literary critique mood today. I think this quote sums up the entire book in one line, and why the discussions which are in it are so important to speak. The dilemma of a queer person in an abusive relationship is addressed so well. It says, "We deserve to have our wrongdoing represented as much as our heroism. Because when we refuse wrongdoing as a possibility for a group of people, we refuse their humanity." It is so true. Like, people feel that if queer people start talking about the abusive relationships they have been in, the struggles they have faced in the hands of other queer people, that their cause will be diminished in any way. It is difficult to actually talk about single individual people who have inflicted hurt and pain on you when a group of people may actually be on the receiving end of cultural violence. Dealing with such feelings is expressed really, really well in this book, which is why I think it is on my list of top 6 queer books that I really love. Anyway, moving on, the 5th book on this list is The Paying Guests by Sarah Waters. Again, this is historical fiction, which is one of my favorite genres, and Sarah Waters is like the authority of sapphic romances. Frances is the main character. She's the protagonist. She lives with her mother in this house, in their family home, which is now left to just the two of them because her father and her brother passed away in the war. The World War One, the Great War, that. And now they're struggling to make ends meet, and they want to have paying guests to help keep the house. And they get these two lovely people called Lillian and Leonard, and they bring a lot of fun music, enthusiastic conversations to the household. And Lillian and Frances fall in love with each other, with devastating consequences. Sarah Waters was quoted saying that this was actually based on real life events of when people fell in love with other people's wives and consequences happened, whatever. I liked reading it mainly because of how situated it was. Like, it's 1920s England, and the writing is so eerily loyal to its time that you can actually feel like you're a part of the whole thing. You're there, seeing these two people fall in love with each other, realize the drastic changes that would bring in their lives, realize the problems, the consequences, etc. You feel like you're right there. Why I am suggesting this is because historical fiction plus lesbian smart.
What else do you need to be convinced? Nothing.
No. It's probably impossible to take me seriously when I'm talking like this. My camera suddenly decided to stop recording. No, because the size limit was reached because I was doing the thing. Anyway, we are back and I'm going to bite my face with Rosewater and talk about the last book, which is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I know this is the most obvious, most cliched choice, but as I mentioned in the very beginning of the video, I included books which I remembered for particular reasons. And this one I remember because I cried so much. They had no right. It's cliched, it's sappy, it is every trope you can imagine. Put it in a mythological setting, Greek mythology to be exact. And I don't know why I was so invested. I have heard people rant about how they did not care about the characters in this book, and you know what? I get it. They're not likable. They're insufferable. They're frustrating to read about. They have communication errors, the level of Wattpad fanfiction, but you still cannot help but I couldn't help but actually root for them so hard. And I think another reason why I like this book is also because focus is always on Hector, Paris, Helen, etc., etc. And I get bored of the same characters over and over again.
Take a shot every time I say I get bored. I'm so sorry. I have issues, clearly.
But yes, I think that is why I enjoyed this book so much, because the focus shifted for once. Because I've heard so much about Achilles, Patroclus, I've heard about these people, but I've never actually had full fleshed out books written about them that I have read. This could be a me problem, the fact that I'm uncultured, but I cried, I loved it. Another thing about this book that should be mentioned is Thetis. Thetis does not deserve the villainization that she has faced. She was abused, she went through a lot, and she did what she did to protect her son. And I think her character is a brilliant study in women's wrongdoings. And I do support women's rights, but also women's wrongs. Yes, I know, it's cliched again, because this book is cliched. But I like it, okay? And it's on the list, okay? So I've run out of storage, so I'll quickly finish this video while I put Nivea
On my face.
and my glasses. The skincare routine is complete. Can you believe? I do this, yes, sometimes. So I really hope that you like this. So, now you know my skincare routine and you have gained nothing. I will put on my glasses because makes me look more articulate, which I am not. But anyway, I hope you like this confused list of books that I mentioned. I will add a list in the description so that you can refer to it if you want to read any of my suggestions. Let me know if you read any and how you like it. That is all. I have nothing more to say. Thanks for staying with me. Goodbye.